Bend the knee! Valamogolis, everybody. This is Don Willie, back again with another tinfoil theory video. Yeah, that's right. We're going to talk about some of this stuff right here. Today's topic is going to be the babies of ice and fire. So, this is not actually, completely my own thing. First time I ever heard about at least parts of what I'm going to discuss was from Preston Jacobs' video. And then recently I was watching Quinn from Ideas of Ice and Fire, and lately he's been proposing that R plus L does not equal J. That got me to thinking, like, you know what? This cannot be discounted whole cloth because we don't have definitive answers as of yet. But I will say, as a caveat, I do believe that no matter what, R plus L will equal J in the TV show Game of Thrones. So, while for the books it may wind up being different, I think for the show, this is definitely true. Because we have basically been giving no other alternatives, right? So let's get into it. Now, R plus L equals J is the big theory that's been going around, and that is Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark equal Jon Snow. But Preston Jacobs and also Quinn from Ideas of Ice and Fire have proposed another theory that, in fact, his parents are actually either Ned Stark or Brandon Stark and Ashara Dane. And that the actual R plus L theory is that Rhaegar and Lyanna's kid is actually Daenerys Targaryen. So I decided, to kind of dig a little deeper into this and explain how this could be possible. Because I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, that, just doesn't make any sense. There's no kind of proof for it. So, again, like I said, this will be reaching into the realm of this, and I literally have on my I guess this will be my tinfoil hat for doing these kinds of videos. So let's look at it here. So Brandon Stark and the Ashara Dane, their kid is Jon Snow, right? So people are gonna be like, wait, but the attorney at Harrenhal was way too long, blah blah blah. I'm like, look, we're not given an exact timeline for when some of this stuff took place, right? So even though we know the attorney at Harrenhal was a while before Robert's Rebellion, we also know that Rhaegar didn't kidnap Lyanna until like a year after the tournament at Harrenhal. So what we could have is a situation where Brandon Stark actually met up with the Ashara Dane somewhere in between the rebellion and the tourney at Harrenhal. There's a lot that we're not given in terms of people's goings on, the going ons, whatever, however you say it. But point is, we could have a situation where they met up and, right before Brandon goes off to be with Catelyn, he sleeps with Ashara Dane, maybe, talks about how much he loves her, wishes he was with her, but he's got to go be with the woman he's betrothed to. Now, at the end of the day, I think Brandon was a liar, and I think this is not the only woman he has done this to. Look at Barbary Dustin, right? She talks about how much she hates the Starks because of what happened to her husband, but really it was more so because of her not being able to have Brandon. So I would imagine that Brandon may have told Ashara Dane this as well. And, right before he goes back to Winterfell, because, we don't even know exactly where Brandon was when he got the news about his sister supposedly being kidnapped. He may not have been in the north at all. We don't know where he was. What if he was in the south, or on his way back from, the south, visiting Ashara Dane, or who knows who else. And then, on the way there, he hears about his sister and goes to King's Landing to try to face Rhaegar. So let's say Ashara gets pregnant, but at this point, Brandon has already left. And, months later, she winds up giving birth to Jon, but by this time, Brandon already got killed. Now, you got to think about it. He left her with a bastard. He's on his way to go marry another woman. And then his brother shows up with her brother's sword, possibly his dead body, or maybe he's incapacitated or whatever. And the only thing that she can think of is, here's a guy that I actually did like, but I wound up sleeping with him too fast, and he bounces and decides, to go marry the woman he's betrothed to or whatever. Maybe she says to Ned, you know what? I don't want this damn kid here. I don't want to have to think about Brandon Stark at all. I don't want anything to do with any of this. Thank you for returning the sword to Starfall. Thank you for showing my brother mercy or whatever. But yeah, do me a favor, get this kid out of here. Now, you might be thinking, well, damn, that's kind of harsh. But, again, we're talking about two people from two different cultures. Even though bastards aren't looked upon, with the same scorn as they are in the rest of the Seven Kingdoms, like in Dorne, they're treated better. Again, still may be a thing of her being pissed off at Brandon for leaving her with a bastard and going to marry another woman. So you might be wondering now, okay, well, why does Ned not tell Cat about this?
Oh.
Well, in this kind of feudalistic society, and we've seen how Cat has, despises bastards or whatever, right? So in this kind of feudalistic society where you have bastards who are looked upon with scorn, you also have, the hierarchy of who gets to inherit what lands, titles, etc., etc. How would Catelyn treat it if she just had Ned's son, who would currently be the heir to Winterfell, and then Ned shows up with Brandon's son by another woman who now, could possibly have a claim on Winterfell, a better claim than her own son, right? Now you might be thinking, well, damn, but why would Ned do that? Why wouldn't he tell him, like, look, you know what? Think about how Catelyn treated Jon for all those years, just off of him possibly being Ned's bastard son, right? As Ned's son, he had no claim to anything unless he was legitimized by the king. And remember, Ned was going to legitimize Jon for years. He was, had thought about legitimizing Jon. But think about what happens if Jon is actually Brandon's kid. If Jon is Brandon's kid and he gets legitimized by the king, then Winterfell is his. Ned, his kids, Catelyn, all of them are basically pushed out the line of succession. Winterfell belongs to Jon. So Ned thinking about this, I don't think he did it out of malice. I think he did it to protect Jon, because he wouldn't want a war starting. He wouldn't want anyone trying to kill Jon because he's actually the heir to Winterfell. You got the Tullys who may have some sort of animosity about it. Catelyn would definitely have some sort of animosity about it. And so he decides, you know what, the best thing to keep Jon safe is for him to think that he's my bastard son and not actually the true heir to Winterfell because of the problems that would cause. All right, so we're going to move on to Daenerys Targaryen. I'll get back to Jon in a little while and how this whole thing kind of plays out. So the other popular theory, or not popular, but the other theory that Preston Jacobs had talked about was that Rhaegar and Lyanna, that their kid was Daenerys, right? And yeah, sure, I said that a little while ago, but just to reiterate. Now, we all hear about Daenerys being the daughter of Rhaella and Aerys Targaryen. It's like, oh, well, everyone knows that she was born on Dragonstone and the biggest storm, blah, 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 right? Now, there are a few inconsistencies with her story, and these are clues that have been used to debate whether or not she actually grew up in Braavos, or whether or not it was Dorne, etc., right? So I'm just gonna throw in my 2 cents, and I'm gonna raise a couple of questions that may not have been thought of by people before. So, taking it back to the Tower of Joy. Lyanna Stark is dying. Ned goes, sees her in the bed of blood, and she's like, promise me to take care of this kid. So Ned is thinking to himself, okay, Robert just won the throne. He wants to kill all damn Targaryens. I can't show back up with this blonde-haired, purple-eyed kid because automatically they're going to know that this is Rhaegar's child with my sister, and I don't want to have to fight Robert now that we just fought against Aerys Targaryen. Alright, so along with the sword and along with Arthur Dayne's body, or maybe Arthur Dayne himself, they go back to Starfall, and he runs into Ashara Dayne. Ashara Dayne is all pissed off. Okay, look, I don't want Brandon's kid. Okay, well, hey, will you take Lyanna's kid? Now, she decides, okay, yeah, I'll take the kid, I'll keep her safe or whatever. Raises her in Dorne. Dorne is the only place where you would have lemon trees that grow in all the 7 kingdoms. And also, as far as we know, that's like pretty much the only place where lemon trees grow. So Ashara Dayne is keeping Daenerys safe for a little while, but later on, she's like, you know what? Really can't do this. Passes her off to William Darry. Now you might be wondering, but everybody talks about Rhaella having Daenerys, during the worst storm in living memory, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but remember, Rhaella also died during childbirth. Now, I do believe that there actually was a Daenerys Targaryen that was born during the worst storm in living memory. I don't think that it was this baby that this woman that we've been calling Daenerys Targaryen. So, think about it like this, right? Rhaegar is obsessed with prophecy. Rhaegar is trying to have, 3 kids with 3 heads to dragon. He already has one daughter named Rhaenys. He has the second kid named Aegon. It would be obvious to him that the third head of the dragon, if it were to fulfill some sort of prophecy of, Aegon the Conqueror come again, that the next one would have to be a girl, and he would have to name that girl Visenya. So, what I'm proposing here is that the Daenerys Stormborn that we see was actually Visenya Targaryen, but because, trying to keep her safe again, at least safe as they could, or maybe even people lying to her, she has been passed off as Rhaella's daughter. Now, this may be the work of Viserys, but Viserys, I don't think he was old enough to try to pull off something like this. Daenerys may have only been a couple of months old when Rhaella died, right? So, a couple of months may not be that huge of a difference in terms of size of children or whatever. Varys may have possibly been a little bit involved with some of this, but the point that I'm making is I don't think that Viserys actually lied to Daenerys. I think he didn't know that was his niece. So taking this a little bit further, we have Daenerys, who's been swapped out. She should have been Visenya or whatever. And now this is where Quaithe comes in. Now, depending on who you believe, Quaithe is either one of 2 people. Either she is Shiera Seastar, Bloodraven's former mistress, or she is Ashara Dayne. Right? Now, Ashara Dayne, there's also another person that she could be, and I believe that is a silent sister. To me, Ashara Dayne being a silent sister makes just a little bit more sense, only because we've never heard anything about Ashara Dayne doing anything with magic, and anytime someone is obsessed with magic, we usually hear about them doing something before they might have become someone else. So Quaithe is always telling Daenerys to remember who she really is, right? And it has to do with the house with the red door, lemon trees, her not really growing up in Braavos. But what if it is actually deeper than that? What if it is that her father was not the Mad King Aerys, but that her father was Rhaegar Targaryen, and that her name is not actually Daenerys, it is Visenya? Think about it. Like, we have people in this story who have gone by different names, people who have gone by aliases, and it would be kind of crazy if this one was like the ultimate alias, because the truth has been hidden from her. Now, another thing to note, and this is something that comes up in the books a few times, but especially in book 1, is hair color. Hair color in this particular story is almost like a Maury show DNA test. And because of this magic world, it seems that for the most part, not always, but for the most part, that children have the father's hair coloring. And I would attribute this to strong leaders having strong genes, which is why you hear about the seed being strong. This is how Jon Arryn was able to figure out that Robert's kids were not his, same way that Ned figured it out. And this is part of the reason why Jon looks way more like a Stark than his supposed brothers and sisters. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, but they say Arya looks more like a Stark. She looks just like Lyanna. Well, think about it like this, right? Brandon was meant to rule. Brendan was taught the rule from the time he was a kid. So for him, yeah, he's going to have that strong leadership gene. And for me, I think it's the people with the strong leadership genes that pass it on to their kids, and that's why their kids look more like them. Ned, on the other hand, was raised to be a soldier. He was more of a household knight, so he was playing in the background, which is why most of his kids look more like Catelyn. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's not how genetics works. Damn it, this is a fantasy story, okay? The rules work how the author sets it up. So the reason why Arya looks more like a Stark is because that is around the time when Ned was actually starting to feel more comfortable in his role as a leader, right? It took him years to fully embrace being the Lord of Winterfell. But unfortunately for him, all of the strength that he was able to muster up in that department was deposited into Arya, right? Which is why she is the most Stark-like in terms of appearance and maybe even in terms of temperament. That's not to say that the other kids aren't his. I believe they're all his, but it's just that, it wasn't until around the time when he conceived Arya with Catelyn that it actually became a thing where he felt like, yes, this is mine, and I have embraced me being the Warden of the North and the Lord of Winterfell. So that's why you would have Rhaegar and Lyanna's child having blonde hair. Because let's think about it, right? It doesn't make sense that Jon Snow having a Targaryen parent and a Stark parent results in him having full black hair. Now, we don't know that much about Ashara Dane, right? But I do believe that she is described as having black hair. The Starks are known for having either black or dark brown hair. And, it would make sense that you have these two parents who are together, make a child, and the child comes out with dark hair. So, just throwing that out there for you guys. And also, let's look at another possible case here. Robert Arryn, the Lord of the Eyrie. So, if you notice something, Lysa Arryn also has the same kind of auburn hair as the rest of the Tullys. And if I'm not mistaken, Jon Arryn had blonde hair during his youth. Now, by the time Lysa Tully marries him, I think he's already gone gray. But I believe in his youth he had blonde hair. Robert Arryn, brown hair. How does this happen? Could be some sort of recessive gene, but let's be honest. We know a guy in the story who has brown hair, who's been sleeping with Lysa Tully for years, and that is Littlefinger. So, yeah, if anyone hasn't thought about this before, I would say that it's possible that Robert Arryn is Littlefinger's son. Whether or not Littlefinger knows it, I have no idea. Whether or not he cares, I don't think he actually cares. But it will put him in a bad position anyway. So even if that were his son, he couldn't admit it to anybody. But just think about how he's described. Robert Arryn is described as being small and sickly for his age. And we've heard Littlefinger talk about how he was small and kind of sickly as a child. So, to me it makes sense because, if the seed is strong, why doesn't that kid have blonde hair? These are just some things that I was thinking about. I could be totally way off base, but again, this is just me talking about a little bit of tinfoil. What do you guys think about this? I would suggest checking out the links in the description just to see where I got some of this stuff from. And yeah, man, let me know what you guys think. Is it way off base? Again, in the show, R plus L equals J. I would bet my actual tinfoil hat on it. I like this hat. I don't want to lose it. But in the books, very possible that R plus L equals D, and that B plus A equals J, and that LF plus LA equals RA. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave it at that one. It is early in the morning. I am rambling, and yeah, so another battle video coming very soon. Other special guest, and you guys already know the deal. Rate, comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends, come back for more. That's been my time. This is Don Willie saying Vala Doharis.